Hey everyone, Coops here from the Whole Box and Dice. Thank you so much for checking out the MM3 giveaway. The Can We Flip It for that one is up, so please go check our awesome pulls on that video. I know I didn't do like a restricted and banned update video reaction kind of thing. I was holding out a little bit, partly because they named Dynavolt Tower as one of the decks they thought could fix it, and this tied in well with the $50 budget deck that I put together around Black-Red, DVT, Energy Burn, Nope kind of thing. So this is what you've got today. I will just touch on this quickly because I had heaps of people ask me, what would I have done? Are they making the right decision? I think Wizards have worked out that banning is categorically bad for the game. Emrakul, yes, I see why they banned that card. It was too powerful, but Gideon probably falls into that category as well, as does Heart of Kieran. Smuggler's Copter definitely needs to stay banned, but I would actually unban everything and just put limits on the cards is what I would do. Aetherworks Marvel, definitely put that on a 2-piece limit. Same with Emrakul, same with Gideon, same with Heart of Kiran. Even maybe things like Scrap Heap Scrounger and stuff, maybe they need to be capped at 3, just so there's a little less consistency. I don't know, but I think that would be the best way to go. That way no cards are actually prevented from being able to play. Obviously, some level of tutor. Be careful or monitor the kind of cards that you're printing that allow for tutoring, because you don't want to give people that access to just be able to, search up the cards, even if you do go down to a 1 or 2 off strategy. That's what I would have done. So for what it's worth, they're obviously not going to ban cards like Gideon, regardless of how powerful it is, when they're just about to print a new Gideon as well. So that's counterproductive. That's going to shatter consumer confidence. So I think this is kind of the reality. And I do hope they go to the 1 and 2 of strategy going forward. But that's probably it. That's all I want to really say on the matter. Everyone else covered it, and they did some awesome videos. So if you're interested in looking for more, just go search it up. It's not a hard topic to find. But one of the things they mentioned is they didn't want to ban it because of Temur Dynavolt Tower. Now, obviously, Temur Aetherworks Marvel was a really strong deck, so it's no surprise to see people trying to find another shell for that combo with DVT. Now, Temur Aetherworks Marvel and Temur now Dynavolt Tower is about $1 million, accurate figure. Temur Dynavolt Tower plays things like the Trench of Gearhulk, and we've gone the complete opposite, and I'm going to show you a way today that you can build about a $50 budget version of DVT, but in black-red. Has a really nice energy sub-theme to it. It's got some great creature control and some burn to just put you over the top. And it plays 2 copies of a really funky Shadows Over Innistrad card that complements the deck really, really well. And when I was making this video, a couple of days ago, I watched a video from Dev at Strictly Better MTG. And he was talking about how people are saying, oh, if this card's so amazing, this card that I'm about to run through in the last 2 slots of the deck, why don't you make it 4? And there's so many different reasons, curve and the synergy with the deck, and, is this deck something that operates in the mid-game? And you don't need to see 4 copies of this throughout the deck because you'll get too many, and that's a waste of card slot. Or obviously, you have an aggro deck, you will need to see this card quickly, so it makes sense to run 4. And people just got to remember that I don't think just 4 ofs is the way to solve any kind of format and any kind of meta. And as soon as you start going 4 ofs, unless you have highly flexible cards, you can't handle maybe, decks that are thrown at you. And as the, standard meta evolves and you see more decks, having those 1 and 2 ofs coupled with your sideboard could really give you a super flexible, just deck concept to handle just any kind of archetypes that are thrown at you, rather than being so aggressively pigeonholed down one path, and anything that falls into, category A, you'll smash out of the park, but any variants and shift to column B, you'll really struggle against. But there you go. They're my 2 kind of pain pieces that have been playing on my mind. Bans, let's see where they go from here, and don't just put 4 of everything in your deck just because you think you need to do it. Play around, experiment with some cards. You'll be amazed to see how much you can throw your opponent off their game, and give you some really sneaky just avenues to victory that you probably hadn't opened up in your current deck build. So Black-Red, Dynavolt Tower, we'll jump straight into the instance for this one. We're going to run 3 copies of Fatal Push. Card's absolutely nuts. Destroy target creature, CMC 2 or less. Hit that Revolt trigger, and that kicks up to 4. Card's great. Run 3 copies all day. And your opponent's going to draw small creatures as the game goes on, so it's really bad to top deck this anyway as we move through our deck. 4 copies of Fiery Temper. We're running the standard Tormenting Voice, draw, discard in the deck, so it's great to be able to throw this away for the madness cost of 1, hit him for 3, either to the face, to a creature, redirect it to a Planeswalker. Super essential card. Going to run 3 copies of Harness Lightning and 3 copies of Shock. We're running a sub-energy theme, so Harness Lightning is obviously great. Get 3 energy, then spend any amount of energy. obviously any amount of energy that you have, you can't like go to the energy bank and be like, well, that's a green Gearhulk for 8, so I need 8 energy to kill that. No, obviously that's not how it works. And then Shock, 2 damage, creature or player. It's just like a Fiery Temper, but we always are paying 1 for it, and you can redirect it as well, which is great. And these are pretty staples of the deck. Shock is great for things like Thalia, because we want to kill that ASAP. That card, kills me. I hate that card. So we definitely want to get rid of cards like Thalia. Running 2 copies of Unlicensed Disintegration in the deck, and 1 copy of To the Slaughter. To the Slaughter is definitely an underappreciated card. Instant speed, forces a sack, so you can get around things like Hexproof, great for things like Walking Ballista, for things like Bristling Hydra or Sphinx of the Final Word. When you verse the control post-sideboard, they often bring that in just because it's a really difficult threat to take out, and obviously prevents their counter spells from being countered, so that's very annoying. Not that we're running any counter spells in this, but it's just a really, really strong card, and when you get Delirium and you can force a 2-for-1, that's insane, both a creature and a planeswalker. And if you've used your spells correctly to control the board, you can often leave them with just a planeswalker exposed, and then you can cast this and they're forced to sack their walker. So with Dynavolt Tower, we are running 4 artifacts, so you do get that little extra reach over the top on our 2 copies of Unlicensed, but that's the instant suite there. Jumping into the sorceries, I mentioned Tormenting Voice, 4 copies of this, 3 copies of Live Fast. Live Fast, 2 cards, lose 2 life, get 2 energy. Great for our energy producing cards and our spells and Dynavolt Tower. Tormenting Voice gives it a madness avenue for Fiery Temper, and obviously we do burn through a lot of cards in this deck, so we do want that refill. Also running 2 copies of Shreds of Sanity, and you'll see the value of this card at the very end when we go through our last 2 slots. You do have to discard a card when you cast this for 3, 2 generic and a red, so it is good that you can use Fiery Temper off this as well. And just the ability to bring 1 key sorcery, either card draw or instant kill spell, back from the graveyard can be the difference between winning and losing the game. Moving to the creature suite, we're playing 4 copies of Thermo Alchemist. This guy fits in with DVT so well. You'll often have scenarios where you tap this instant, tap him again, instant, get amazing interactions with this guy. Once you've got Summoning Sickness off him, you definitely want to be tapping at the end of your opponent's ends or beginning of your opponent's end step, just as doing that 1 bit of damage. And it will add up. The 1 damage each turn definitely ticks over and definitely forces your opponent to say, hey, I can't keep taking this 1 damage at a time, especially when it's coupled with things like an end of turn Dynavolt Tower as well. Also running 2 copies of Bedlam Reveler and Lachnam Hellion in the deck. Hellion, 3 mana, 4/4 with haste. This is why we hate Thalia so much. This card becomes almost unplayable with Thalia out because we lose him, we lose the haste benefit. If you don't pay the energy, and unlike Greenbelt Rampage with this guy, you don't have to pay the energy. Even if you have it, you can choose to sack it, which then brings the Revolt trigger online for Fatal Push, but it's awesome just to be able to have 4 haste power on the board. Reveler, if you ever cast this for 8, you've done something horribly wrong. You've opened with like 6 lands and a Reveler, and for some reason you've kept it. It gets cheaper for every instant and sorcery that we have in the graveyard, which we're playing plenty of. It's got prowess as well, and it's often the last card out of your hand, which couples perfectly with discard your hand, draw 3 cards. I mentioned Dynavolt Tower, playset of this guy. It's an amazing artifact. Love that you can just tap it in your opponent's end step for 3 damage. You can take out a creature before it causes any issues. Even if you get into a messy trade, you can then use Dynavolt Tower to either do the last bit of damage to take it out, or you can, just hit something that, like a Death Touch creature and stuff, the really annoying stuff that's going to disrupt your board, or menace and those kind of creatures. And the ability to Planeswalker as well is invaluable because besides To the Slaughter, we don't have a lot, and obviously Shock that we can do. So yeah, Shock, Fiery Temper, we do have a bit spell-wise, but just being able to have 3 energy or even cast a spell, killing a creature and then using that energy from that with Dynavolt Tower to tap out a Planeswalker or do some extra damage to a player is just great. Now, we're running 21 lands in the deck. We've got enough card draw to get away. Our curve is pretty low in this. You might even be able to get away with 20 lands. It's just mountains and swamps. Plus, we're running the Blighted Fen as well. Again, that sack trigger is super, super valuable. Plus, it triggers a Revolt. Not often that you're going to have the mana, even though Fatal Push is only 1, just because of the curve of the deck. But it is possible. I have had it a couple of times as well. So that's a nice 2-for-1 as well. So you can cast it, they sack a creature, then you hit the Revolt trigger, then often don't get rid of their bigger guy, which leaves their 4 converted mana cost or less guy up. and you can pop that off as well. So bit of a 2-for-1 is always nice on the back of a sack land. Now, I've mentioned creatures, mentioned spells, mentioned the artifacts we're running, and our lands. And if you've been doing your math, we just have 2 slots left. This is 2 copies of Harness the Storm. This card, the enchantment for free, Shadows over Innistrad, is absolutely nuts. It's cheap as well, both to play and like to pick up at your local game store. And the fact that you don't exile spells off the back of this is insane. When I first saw this card, I was like, oh yeah, play something again if you've got it in your graveyard. Then you have to exile it, right? No, you don't have to exile at all. And you will have times where you'll have a shock in your graveyard or 2 shocks in your graveyard, and in your opponent's end step, you'll cast this targeting creature or targeting face, and you'll just pay the extra mana to cast it again. You can use Shreds of Sanity to pull out these spells so you can recast them, and you'll have interactions with Harness Lightning where you'll have 4 mana up, and you can cast with the DVT out 2 Harness Lightnings when you have Harness the Storm as well, and that's 10 energy off the back of that, which is pretty much enough to take out anything, even the giant creatures that you see in green-black counters. So Harness the Storm, super valuable. We don't need to see 4 because you can win games without it, but gee, it's handy to dip back into our graveyard and recast stuff as well, which also means you don't need to worry as much with Bedlam Reveler and Tormenting Voice about discarding cards, because as long as you're running more than 1 copy of it, you can recast these. And even like Unlicensed Disintegration, you have turns where you've got 6 mana and a DVT out, you kill 2 creatures and do 6 to the face. That is an amazing deal. If you had an instant in Standard that was 6 mana, double red, double black, 2 generic, for kill 2 creatures, deal 6 damage to target player, you would definitely play that card. That is an insanely solid instant to play. So guys, the deck is really, really versatile. I've played this against the Energy, the Jund Energy deck that we're seeing a little bit of. I've played it against Black-White with Liliana and Gideon and Gisela, for example. I've tried it against vehicles as well. The deck is flexible enough to take out enough creatures, especially with the sideboard, and it's got enough reach with the burn to do the damage over the top as well. Looking into the sideboard now, we're running, and I'll throw the sideboard up, we're running 4 copies of Goblin Dark Dwellers. We're rounding out the playset of the Lathnu Hellion as well. 4 copies of Incendiary Flow. 2 copies of Tears of Valakut. Great now that both Hardakiran and Avacyn are still sticking around in the format. Not that Avacyn was going to get banned, but great you can take out a flyer and it can't be counted. 2 copies of Yeheni's Expertise as well. I do like this, just the ability to kill the board if it gets a little bit out of control, and then we can play something like a Harness of Storm or a Dynavolt Tower. Also cast a Lathnu off this as well, because it's got 4/4, it's going to survive the Expertise, which is always good, and 1 copy of Yeheni himself. As you pop off opponent's creatures, you can make Yeheni bigger. He has haste as well, which is always nice for just getting in for some damage. So guys, that's what the deck looks like. As I said, costs about $50. I know you appreciated the last deck that was a little bit cheaper. After this, I'm going to do Naya Humans with Metallic Mimic, which is a little bit more than $50, but this is a super awesome competitive deck. If you guys have been following the channel, you know it's taken out a couple of FNMs at my local recently. It is a good matchup against everything that's in the format, and I like that it's just not Mardu vehicles or green-black counters. I like that it's a little bit different, and that's going to start the start of our budget Mimic series. Got a couple of $50 decks. Got Spiders, which also manages to play Ishkanar for under $50, as well as Werewolves, and we can get 2 copies of Arlen in that deck. So really enjoying playing around with the Mimics. There is the Aetherborn Tribal deck, and that is a very, very strong deck, but I'm not going to do that one because I'm sure you guys have already seen the video, or you can go check it out on, I think it's the Mana Source, put that one up from memory, wedge over there, but great decks. I like the Mimics, and your opponents give you mad respect when you play these cards. You play a Mimic naming Werewolves or Mimic naming Spiders, and your opponent just sits up and goes, okay, no idea what this is going to be, but props to you, this looks like it's going to be fun. So thank you again for watching, guys. Please check out the Modern Masters videos if you haven't seen them. We've got some insane pulls. Let me know what you think about this deck. Let me know what you want to see more of. Comment, subscribe. Welcome to everyone who's joined the channel recently. My name is Coops. This is the Whole Box and Dice. Peace.